weird, I'm actually using normal OBS tonight. I'm so used to using Streamlabs now.
That's so nice.
After the one time. And that is good. Alright, switching back. Alright, let me send out some messages. Then we can get going. Yeah, I'm not expecting us to be like an hour 45 or anything tonight.
Nah, it should go pretty quick.
Since we don't really have to do like power rankings or questions or anything like that, so it'd be nice. I just want to know what patch we're going to be playing on. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I hope we get Hanzo. But if we don't, we don't.
Yeah. I think we're not going to get him.
I don't know. Raucus sounded pretty sure of himself.
Well, that's the thing. Like, we've heard it from both sides, so.
Yeah.
There is that, so. It seems like they're pretty split. So obviously, like, the communication is getting mixed up somewhere.
Well, that just means that if they do put Hanzo, we probably won't see him very much week 1.
Right, just because he wouldn't have been practicing it.
Unless the Outlaws want to bring out Mendo. It's his top played hero.
They're not going to free him.
Oh, don't worry. I'll bring that up again. Because I pulled them in our overview.
Yeah, well, I mean, you were more likely to catch him then, since Lambo's not here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watchpoint comes out tonight. Maybe they'll say.
I mean, that would be the place where they would announce it, I would imagine. So we shall see. Alright, got that. Messages are out.
Let me close Photoshop real quick. The memory hog.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, I'm ready whenever.
I'm just going to retweet from my other accounts.
I'll do that from my phone.
Ooh, multitasking. Alright.
Mostly just because I have to turn the sound off on my phone.
Since you're already there, you might as well.
Yeah.
Alright, that's done. Retweet. Yeah.
Man, I need to clean the mustache up.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't notice it till I'm on camera.
It happens. Alright, let's do a show.
Let's do it.
Alright. Alright, starting the sounder, let's get going.
You are listening to the Overwatch League Network, the podcast with Deadeye on all the Overwatch League news and information. The show with Tactical Visor on the statistics and analysis. Here are your hosts, Totally Drunk, Spider, and Slambo.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Overwatch League Network, the podcast with Deadeye on all the latest Overwatch League news, information, and esports analysis. I am your host, Totally Drunk, and tonight on episode 33, we're going to go around the league discussing the latest Overwatch League news. We'll talk about what to expect in this upcoming kickoff of Stage 4 and so much more, but before we can get into the news and introduce you to my co-hosts, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is sitting out with us here on our live show over on Twitch, and thank all of our repeat listeners. And, usually I have a few friends here with me to, most nights to help break everything down, but as you can see, we are a man down tonight. We are short and down one soulmate, and Slambo is away on business. Now, Spider, you should know this better than anyone. When you miss a show, the troll really comes out of me.
Oh, yeah.
So, with that being said, guys, I do have something brand new to introduce to the show, and I hope that everyone that is watching over on Twitch or YouTube VOD is going to appreciate this as much as I do. So presenting, guys, the Audio Abyss board, because I didn't know what else to name it. So, we're gonna throw it up on stream right now, so you can see, this is Overwatch League Network. We are live, and as you can tell, Slambo's not here. So, what are we going to do, guys? We're gonna update this sign, and every time that Slambo misses a show, this is going to be up here. Just so he knows that we know that he's not here. We acknowledge it. So, here's the current version. We are 1 week. Now, initially I was like, should I put an asterisk next to this? Because technically he wasn't fully here. But he did at least show up, so I didn't put it to 14. Yeah. He was here for a partial show. But take that for what it is. Some people might want to extend it. So, that's going to stay up there for the rest of the show, just so everyone can see it. And if you want to fill out your own board, guys, you can find it over on our Overwatch League Network Twitter. But all joking aside, guys, we are here to talk about some Overwatch League. And with me, not sucked into that audio abyss that Slambo has fallen into yet again, is my co-host, Spider. Spider, we had the week off. We came off of the Stage 3 playoffs. And we've had, a number of contenders regions wrapping up their Season 1 finals, which has been a lot of fun. We got to see a lot of the Academy teams really doing some awesome stuff there. But we do have a healthy dose of League news. But I just want to know, how has your past week been?
It's been pretty good. It was actually, like you said, it was a pretty chill week. So I actually got to sit back and enjoy Overwatch the game more so than I normally do, just because, I wasn't watching the games. So I got to sit back, play. You and I played Saturday night. You had took over the stream Friday night because I had some last minute computer problems that I actually ended up having to take care of. But as you can see, that's all fine and dandy now. So I will be streaming this Friday. Barring any other catastrophic failures, but it was fun. I like I said, I got to enjoy the week. There wasn't a whole lot of drama like there was in between past stages. So overall, it was just pretty quiet, and I'm ready for Stage 4.
Yeah, absolutely. There are still a ton of questions that need to be answered in regards to Stage 4. Probably primarily, what patch we're going to be playing on, because we keep hearing from two different sides of, the story. Okay, yes, we're playing with the new Hansa rework. No, we're not playing with it. I don't know who to believe and who not to believe, so hopefully we'll get an answer on this week's Watch Point. But if we are playing on the new Hanzo patch, chances are we're not going to see Hanzo immediately, just because, since most of the players don't know what patch we're playing on, that would definitely affect the scrim time that they could have had on the Hanzo rework. But let's jump into this week's news. So we got some pretty major news, and, when Slambo told me he was not going to be here, I thought he was just doing it to dodge the fact that he knew I would be ribbing on him whenever I would bring this up. Because the playoff format, guys, it would confuse Slambo.
Oh, yeah.
We talk about first two and best ofs all the time whenever he is cast in, and he's gotten them mixed up a ton of times, and this is not going to be exception. So, we do have the season playoffs format finalized at this point. So, we're going to have 6 teams qualifying for the playoffs. The playoffs will run from July 11th through the 21st. So, the team with the best regular season in each division is going to receive a first-round bye. So basically, that means, New York Excelsior, right, for one division, and then select whatever Pacific team. Currently, it is the Seoul Dynasty in the number 1 spot. I think they have, 1 game over the Valiant in regards to that. But for the remaining 4 teams, that's going to go based on the season record, regardless of the division. So when we get to the playoffs, you're going to have the lowest seed, the 6th seed, going up against the highest seed out of the, 3 through 6, which would be, the 3 seed. And then the 5 seed will face the 4 seed. And then the lowest seeded winner will go up against the 1st seed. And then you can figure the other one out. But this is the confusing part that would stump our good friend Slambo. Each series is a best of 3 matches. And each match is a best of 5 map, so basically what that means is, we'll play it like normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say New York takes the first set, or first match. They'll be up 1, so they would have to win another best of 5 in order to win the title. That's how it works. So the first team to win 2 best of 5 series will be the Season 1 champions.
Yep.
And what would they walk away with? $1 million. Woo! Oh, man. There's a lot of money on the line, Spider. We got $1 million up for the world champ. We have $400,000 for the runner-up. 3rd and 4th place are going to take home $100,000, with 5th and 6th taking home $50,000. So a ton of money on the line. I did not have time to actually compare this to basically all of the other prize pool money. I know in the past there were some major tournaments that was equaling up to what we had seen prior, collectively. I don't know how this ranks compared to that, but $1 million just for the title in itself is a huge stack of cash for sure.
Yeah, I think this is the biggest individual prize. I may be wrong on that, but I know there have been some $1 million overall prize pools, like you said, but I think this might be the biggest, individual prize pool. But yeah, it's basically 3 best of 5s, whoever can win it. I actually like this format because it rewards consistency. So the teams that consistently do well will have a better chance. The downside to this is it really makes upsets a lot harder because you have to pull it off twice in a row, or at least twice in one match. So it will behoove you to go, if you're doing pick'ems or if you're doing anything like that, to go with the safe bet more often than not. New York's a good bet, Boston's a good bet. It really depends on how things end up. But like I said, I like this format. The downside is teams can play up to 15 maps in one weekend, and that's going to be rough. So you're really going to get to see the stamina of some of these teams. So teams like Philly, if they make it in, might have to work on some of their problems because we've seen them run out of steam. We've seen London run out of steam. They're currently out of steam. Let's hope this new meta revitalizes them, but that's a whole different story. But I'm glad they went with this format. It's a lot cleaner than the round robin. It's a lot cleaner than double elimination. It's just, very cut and dry. It's here's your opponent. You have to consistently beat them to move on. And if you do that, okay, good luck. You're in the next round. So, yeah, I mean, good job, Blizzard.
Yeah, and there is a pretty big storm rolling through, so hopefully nothing weird happens. But, this kind of ties in with the season playoffs, and that is we know when the grand finals are taking place and where the Season 1 grand finals will be taking place. So, the Overwatch League grand finals are headed to New York. They're going to be held at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York on Friday and Saturday. That's July 27th and July 28th. So as we mentioned, season playoffs will kick off on July 11th. All of the season playoffs outside of the grand finals will be held at the Blizzard Arena. So, the same venue that we have been at throughout the season. And, we already talked about the format of the grand finals, so we don't need to go over that. But the first match is going to be played on that Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then the second set, and the third set, if necessary, will start on Saturday, July 28th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So, playoff tickets went on sale this past week over on AXS.com. The grand finals tickets will be up on Ticketmaster and Barclays Center starting Friday, May 18th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, but I'm pretty sure they had done a pre-sale, if I'm not mistaken. And if you're planning on going, guys, it is general admission. So basically, first come, first serve for season. So bear that in mind. But we're going to New York. I mean,
woo! East Coast, baby.
I mean, just based off of the fact that, the Excelsior have been in the past 3 stage finals, I can't say that I'm super surprised, but, New York, when you think of sports, in general, is a huge market. So It seems like it's either on the East Coast or the West Coast when it comes to a lot of these Blizzard events. So, us Midwestern folks are getting the shaft. But, New York is a huge opportunity. I want the Barclays Center to get sold out for this. And, I know a bunch of friends that are already planning on going. So, I
Nice.
hope they have a good time. But, guys, if you're in the area, definitely try to get tickets. Go check it out. And I'm just curious to see, like, what the production is going to be like for the grand finals, if they're going to be doing anything special in regards to that, like we have seen in years past for Apex.
I hope so. I mean, I hope they pull out all the stops. Now, this is actually a fairly big arena. I mean, this is where the Islanders play. So you're looking at like 20,000 people
Right.
possible seating, depending on how they do the stage and stuff. That may cut some of it off. But yeah, I'd love to see it sell out. Of course, the one time they bring a huge event to the East Coast, I have something planned that weekend because it's my son's birthday. So,
Womp womp womp
wah, wah,
womp.
wah. No. So I have friends that I work with that are going
Mhm.
and are currently set up to go. So I will live vicariously through them. I may be able to swing something Friday, but yeah, Saturday I would definitely have to scoop back. But overall, I'm just excited that they're branching out. This shows me that they are testing the waters to see what kind of revenue stream they could bring in, other places than LA, and I think that's
Mhm.
a good sign. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think New York being such a dominant team, coupled with the fact that New York is such an epicenter for sports in general, it's just like the match made in heaven. So good, again, good job, Blizzard. You're doing things right. Now just tell us what patch we're playing on.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see whether or not they're going to have the All-Star weekend, like in California or New York, or if they're going to try like another market too. Because you would think like they would try to see how these major markets do, kind of like
Mhm.
within the same time frame, really. So that's gonna be like my next question in regards to some of the other events that we're gonna be putting on for the Overwatch League, at least in terms of season one. But moving on, guys, we have a ton of like coaching staff news. So let's start up with the most obvious one that we pretty much already knew was a done deal. But I would assume that they were just working on finalizing the contract. So, you may have seen said person appearing in some YouTube videos in Hinton again in his bid to become the United States World Cup head coach at
Mhm.
BlizzCon. And that is Kai Kai. The Houston Outlaws have made it official. Kai Kai will serve as the team's assistant coach. And, as many people have called it, kind of the worst kept secret. We pretty much knew it was a done deal. I mean, he kept showing up everywhere. They weren't being too sneaky about it.
Yeah.
So basically, guys, like the rundown is, Kai Kai had previously was the head coach for Dallas Fuel. They had let go of him in mid-April. That was kind of like amongst like all of their struggles and issues within that team. And Kai Kai already has like a working partnership, at least in the past, with like Jake, Cool Matt, Fact Fiction, and Raucus, because he was the head coach for the World Cup team last year for the United States, and they were all on the team then. So, it's a good portion of the roster, too. Uh, but, we look at the Outlaws right now, and this is a team that, they have failed to secure a stage playoff spot in the first three stages of the season so far. They're currently 16 and 14 overall this season. They have a plus 13 map differential, which for that record is actually pretty good.
Hmm.
And right now, they are currently sitting in seventh place overall. So this is a team that could definitely make some movement going into the final stage, which, you know, they have to have a good stage to make it because, it's the top six teams. So with that being said, we've talked about Kai Kai quite a bit on this show. The Fuel are still going to be dealing with a ton of issues, but what are you expecting at least from the Outlaws in regards to this stage? Because, like, last stage, we were feeling better about the team just in regards to the overall map pool, but, now we have a new hero. Obviously, we have another map rotation. Are you expecting more out of the Outlaws compared to what we got out of them in stage 3?
Definitely. I think Kai Kai is going to bring a lot of support to the team at a crucial time. And regardless of what patch we're getting Brigida, and that eliminates the need for a Tracer because Brigida basically removes Tracer off the map, so you don't need a Tracer player anymore. So that actually frees the Outlaws up to do a lot of different things. If we get, you know, post rework Hanzo, that also puts some Junkrat changes in. But they do have a couple of Hanzo players on their team. Hashtag Freemendo. But they also have Linkser, who can play Hanzo. He's actually a very good Hanzo as well. Uh, so if they push Junkrat off the table due to the nerfs, which we haven't seen in pro play and we haven't seen it affect comp that much, although he has dropped in usage in the higher levels. That could just be due to Hanzo's
That's
dominance.
yeah, it's because of his burst potential and just being a billion times better than McCurry currently.
Right. So it's not so much indicative that the nerf hurt Junkrat a lot more. It's just Hanzo is just innately a lot better with Storm Arrow. So I think going forward, this meta, regardless of what patch we get, is going to be a little kinder on the Outlaws, and they have the tools to take advantage of it. Regardless of if we just get Brigitte, if we get the Hanzo rework, I feel like overall, and I feel like Kai Kai along with Tyrong are going to be an amazing coaching combination because we've already seen Tyrong and what he can do. He's kind of taken them and he's helped them in their hard times. And sure they've missed the stage playoffs, but for a team that's had the ups and downs that they have, their mentality has been top notch. So I think with Kai Kai on that team, he brings his knowledge. He doesn't have to worry so much about maybe some of the stuff that he had trouble with Dallas, which, it's hard to say what he really had trouble with Dallas, because at this point it could be just trouble with Dallas. There could be no specifics. So I think overall this is a good time for Kai Kai to get in there and help them out.
Yeah, in other coaching news, we're going to take a look at the Shanghai Dragons because their head coach, RUI, has stepped down due to some health concerns. So their assistant head coach, Con, is going to be taking over as their head coach. So he'll be the head coach moving forward. But RUI is dealing with cervical osteoarthritis and has been dealing with this for quite some time. And I know some of the fans have been mentioning that since he's been in the United States, that has made him miss some treatments that he'd be getting otherwise in China, and he's been having some issues standing up and also sitting down. So, obviously Shanghai Dragons are still on their quest to secure that first win in the Overwatch League. They're 0-30. They have the longest losing streak in pro sports history, and they open stage 4 up against the Dallas Fuel. So, it's a good opportunity for Colin. But this is something that obviously RUI needed to take a break. Obviously, you don't want to keep pushing yourself and just making matters that much worse. So I'm hoping he makes a recovery. Whether or not he can get back to coaching kind of remains to be seen. But maybe he could remote coach as an assistant coach or something like that in the near future. If the opportunity does present itself.
Yeah, it's sad to see him pushed out due to health reasons because I feel like they were making good progress, and the team each week comes out looks a little stronger than they did the week before. That being said, Kong stepping in, I don't think will have too much of an effect because I feel like he can just take that forward momentum and keep going. I am sad to see him go just because of the fact that all the stuff we saw behind the scenes, he looked like a very good coach. He is very personable. Gaguri loved him. She always talked about how good of a coach he was and helped her out. So, it's sad to see this happen, but you got to take care of yourself. And if he was in this much pain, then it was the right decision to go. But like I said, I feel like Khan can take what they've done and just, run forward with it because I don't see this team regressing. Back to say stage 1 where they weren't even putting up fights. I think the team already has a better base than they had, and Kong can kind of help that. And who knows, maybe the pain the last month or so, or however long, has been so much that Kong has been at the forefront and Rui's kind of been more of an assistant coach. We don't know the dynamic behind the scenes, so this could affect nothing, which is kind of where I'm leaning. I don't think this would shatter the team. It's not like, going back to the Outlaws. It's not like Tyrong leaving the team. because he's kind of their epicenter right now. So,
Mm-hmm.
that being said, I I still will think they have a chance against Dallas. I don't get that map later, so I'm that match later in our overview. So I'm throwing out my thoughts now. I think this could be Shanghai's first win, knowing what's going on with Dallas, which we will talk about later.
Absolutely. Well, moving on, guys. Obviously, the Overwatch League is getting very big into fan interaction. We've seen it a lot with the All Access Pass, and we're bringing it to a different plane, really, because we're going virtual reality. So, this is pretty interesting. So, some teams are looking to, bring fans closer to the players and have turned to Linden Lab Sansar. So, the Houston Outlaws and the San Francisco Shock are going to be getting virtual clubhouses. So basically, it's a way to interact with their favorite players, personalities, stream matches, and buy merchandise. So, the Outlaws virtual space will be known as Hideout. The Shock will be getting their own VR arena in Epicenter. Seems to be a common theme tonight. So they're basically like looking at offering to have virtual photo opportunities and meet and greets for the fans. And they basically said, like, we've seen a real need in the esports market for a deeper, more engaging fan experience, something that can go beyond normal spectatorship to really draw people in. So, the Shock and the Outlaws will have some upcoming events. The Outlaws are going to unveil their clubhouse at an event in Houston on May 18th. They'll have access to that event in VR. And then the Shock will have a launch party in California on May 25th, which can also be accessed in VR. But like, I don't know about you. Are you into VR? Do you own like one of the headsets or anything like that?
No, I never got into it, but I would imagine if they're testing something like this, they're gonna go the full compatibility route and probably go like what is it, the Google Cardboard,
Mm-hmm.
or the Samsung Gear, the cheaper headsets. Whereas the more expensive headsets like the Oculus and the Vive
Right.
will most likely have more features or be able to do more interacting. But I can't imagine that they would release this just for the Vive or
Mm-hmm.
the Oculus alone, because they're not going to hit sure they're going to get some interest in it, but that doesn't seem like a good investment to me, especially knowing where the VR space is right now. I think it's a cool idea. I liked seeing them do different things, and this is definitely a very different thing. I'm just worried it's going to turn out like VR chat and just become like a meme land. So
I don't know. VR chat's still very popular. You'd be
it
surprised.
it is very popular, but it's not anything serious, and they seem like they want to take this in like a more serious direction. So I'm curious to see their implementation. We don't know enough about it other
Right.
than that it's just this thing that's happening, and they have names that fit the team, which a plus to their marketing division that they figured those out. But overall, like I said, I'm just cool to see new ideas, and I'm not going to knock it until I see what it is. I know a couple people with both Vive and Oculus,
Mm-hmm.
so um, based on what they offer, I may snag one of those and borrow it because I know they're currently collecting dust.
Hmm.
So
Good to know. Well, I do have a Samsung Gear, so I don't know which one I'll check out, but I do want to just check it out just to see, like how it looks. I mean, I'm really curious to
mhm.
see like one, how many people are going to show up. How many people are going to be in the virtual hideout or arena, whatever you want to call it, the clubhouse. But this is something that we don't really see in the esports market either. So I'm really curious to see how exactly this is going to pan out. It could be a really big thing, or it could just be something that people only pick up, check out once, and then probably never touch again. So I don't know where exactly this is going to fall, but I am intrigued just to see what exactly this is going to provide in regards to the overall fan experience. So, if I do check one out, it'll probably be the Outlaws one, just
Mhm.
because that one is sooner. But if I like what I see there, then I might as well check out what the Shock are doing as well.
Right. Get that elusive look at both Mendo and IDDQD.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much going to be the only time you get to see them, unless they're streaming. Like that's the
Right.
only other time. You can't really count that though, because they're not actually seeing play because they're right on
Right.
the bench. Well, I mean, in Sinatra's case, it's 150 grand worth of events, so I don't know what
Woo!
IDDQD is worth, because
Uh,
that's not public.
not that much,
Probably not.
probably.
But
Oh man.
this is kind of like throwing it back to a report that we kind of covered a couple months ago, but ESPN did post a new report suggesting that the league is looking to add 4 to 6 new teams with slots priced up to $60 million each. Now, the price range that they gave was from 30 million to 60 million. So, going to back a few months, I think it was in like January. That was basically the price point that we had already heard about.
Hmm.
But they basically had talked about like cities are going to be priced according to the population, the number of Overwatch players in the region, and some other factors. And then in markets that might have multiple potential buyers, there could be like a bid war, so that could go up quite a bit. I don't know if they're going to try to like stay away from having uh two teams in the same area, like how they have in LA currently. But it's hard to say. But like I think there's realistically only like a couple of markets where like you could realistically see, them having two teams. LA and New York are probably the two obvious
Hmm.
choices overall, but no, they talked about like the viewers and how the broadcasts have been averaging between like 80,000 to 170,000 concurrent viewers. And they talked a little bit about the revenue in regards to like the valuation of esports organizations. So this is pretty cool. So the organizations within Overwatch League and the NALCS, that's the League of Legends Championship Series. I can't remember what the LCS is. It's something like that.
Yeah.
But they've
League
been
champ.
seeing an increase in valuation up anywhere from 20 million to 60 million dollars in less than a year. Whew. So Nancer, again, he kind of talked a little bit about, the traveling and home and away formats. Obviously they want these teams to find home stadiums, so we're gonna get to that as soon as possible. So I'd say baseline expected to be season 3 at the very earliest. We need
Hmm.
time to get these deals working out. Maybe some teams are building arenas specifically for esports in some cases. Others are probably just scouting the market, seeing where they can find a landing spot. But the season 2 schedule is expected to be announced shortly after the season 1 grand finals. So, we're looking at 4 to 6 teams. And, they had thrown out their big number, a couple months ago. It was like 28, something like that.
Yeah.
For like the big picture. And, we were all kind of like, whoa, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. With that 4 to 6 number, like, where do you think they're going to lean in regards to the expansion teams at this point?
I think the big place they're going to focus on this time is going to be EU.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely going to want to put at least some more in EU, whether it's just France, Stockholm, uh, you know, the bigger cities in EU, and then they may go with a couple more in like the Midwest. I could see that coming in.
Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago is probably the biggest market in the Midwest that doesn't have a team right now. So there's plenty of places they can put it. I mean, South America, they put one in Brazil. I know that's a very popular. Australia needs one. There's plenty of places that they can put it. I'm just excited just to keep hearing these numbers roll out because before season 1 started, we always got like, oh well, it's 20 million and people are iffy about it and stuff like that. Whereas this has been like a hard concrete, like
Mm-hmm.
30 to 60 million, and they're already pitching 4 to 6 teams, which is good. It basically means that the league is a success. I mean, the viewing numbers have been concurrent. They've kind of dropped since stage 1, but they've been well over the established predictions. What everybody expected it to do, and it's getting to the point where uh, it's not so much is this a risky investment. It's more of do I want to miss out, and that's kind of what we're seeing with these people making bids is people on endemic esports organizations are afraid they're going to miss out on the hottest esports ticket, regardless of what happens season one. People like Rogue, Fnatic, these bigger esports organizations are kind of worried now. Traditional sports organizations are looking at it because they've seen the success that the Craft Group looks. Manchester United had been in talks in season one, and that kind of fell through, but they could definitely come back and put another team, in England, maybe another London team, because I feel like London could support two teams at this point, and maybe actually get some people from EU on the team. Um, and then finally, you have that third group of just investors, just the Wall Street investors. We've seen people like Philadelphia. Comcast is not a traditional sports ownership, but they do have contracts with sports, but they're more of like an investment firm, stuff like that, in terms of what they do with their money. So you have people like that, people not traditionally associated with owning a sports team, and people have seen this. Sponsors keep coming in, and overall, I wouldn't be surprised if season 3 we could get up to 28 teams, because if we get 6 this time, we're already almost there. We only need another 6 or 8, so it's not a big push, and at that point they will have the capability to have this region, this global set of teams where they can break it down into regions so the flying isn't so crazy. Because like right now it would kind of stink to have to go all the way to Shanghai to play 1 week's a match, and then maybe go to London, so you cut the flight lower, but it's still a lot of flying in a week. So I'm excited. I hope we get 6 new teams, just because I want to see what kind of logos and stuff they come up with.
Yeah, then we'll have our knee-jerk reactions all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And then we could under-evaluate them like we all did to Boston. It would be fantastic. Yep. But in other news, guys, we do have an update specifically on the Dallas fuel. So it is looking like Dallas is going to be without effect for Stage 4. Now, we don't have a timetable on a return, but Effect has kind of been their carry DPS. But, he's currently out of the picture for now. And, if you've seen his recent tweets, you can kind of see how bad his mental state is in right now. I'm not going to translate the tweets that he did send out. You guys can do that on your own accord if you want to do that. It is some pretty heavy stuff, though, as we get rated by Omniclip. Hey, guys! But, I want to talk about what Hastro said in regards to what is going on with Effect. And Hastro said that we've been working with him to make sure he can get himself ready to come back and play again. I assure you that we take our players' mental health into deep consideration. Our staff has worked very hard this season to assist our players during the stress, and we have provided outside professional help to assist the team. In this specific case, we have allowed Effect to rest for many of the games this season, and will continue to let him rest until he is ready to compete again. I can't tell you when that will be, but I will say that we have been doing whatever we can to make sure he is happy. And that's a big thing. Like, we have seen the organization step in, try to get him some help. And, hopefully, with a little bit of time off, some time to, reflect a little bit. Maybe he'll come back revigorated, and, maybe he'll come back and Dallas will be in a bit of a better state. Because Dallas right now is kind of, I don't want to say it's a free fall. We don't know exactly where it's going to stop. Obviously, they don't have as many pieces to work with. But I feel like if Effect, continued to play, I think it would have just pushed him out, basically. Mm-hmm. Like, you could just see that in, the way he was carrying himself, basically, on stage. So hopefully he'll be able to come back, and, I would not be surprised if we don't see him back for the remainder of this stage, just given the fact that, Dallas' season at this point is over. But, I'm hoping that regardless of what happens, he does get the help that he needs. And, I hope to see him back in the Overwatch League, whether it is this stage or in Season 2, regardless of what team it's on. Because it might not be Dallas, you never know.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect him back in Season 1 at all. I think he's done for the season, just based on what we've seen, what we know, what's going on with Dallas. And, like you said, their season's effectively over. So Stage 4 doesn't have too much of a bearing on the team. So there is no reason to push him in and play, especially in the state that he's in. Just let him rest. Work with the pieces you got, make the best of it. Don't stress out about it at this point. You guys tried. You had a lot of problems. Some internal, some external. Who knows? Some Reddit cause. All kinds of stuff. So it was hard to be a Dallas Fuel fan this season. So like Effect, I am going to take a step back and I'm going to actually root for one of the other teams. And I will reveal which team that is next week, hopefully. Um, if you follow me, like, I'm still going to be a Fuel fan. I'm not giving up on the Fuel. Like, next season, it's back to burn blue. But this season, I got to support a team that actually has a chance. So,
That really narrows it down to like 2 teams.
No, I'm not. I will tell you, it will not be New York, and it will not be Boston. Just because I can't support New York teams. It's like a deep-seated hatred as a Cowboys fan. And I can't support Boston because it's the Patriots. So it's not one of those two. I mean, if you followed me at all, it's my second team anyway, so you should know who it is. But yeah, I am sad that Effect, to get back on point, I am sad that Effect got to this point. He should have never been pushed this far. Dallas has been on a downslide since the beginning of the season. But realistically, the big downslide, I would say, came probably mid stage 2. So once stage 3 rolled around and they were continuing to have problems, they should have just sat him at that point. Whatever internal conflicts were going on with Rascal, OGE came in. There was a lot of shifting pieces and stuff like that. At that point, I mean, you could see it on stage at that point. Effect didn't want to be there. It was basically Mickey's job to keep him somewhat happy. And Mickey did his best, but they should have sat Effect at this point. So I'm, Monte Cristo tweeted a bunch of stuff about this, and I hate to say it, but I actually agree with him. This shouldn't have never gotten this far.
Right.
So just let him have his time and make the best of stage 4. Put Seagull on Doomfist and let's see what we can do, baby.
Or Hanzo.
Or Hanzo.
If it's the Hanzo rework. Yep. I mean, that could be Dallas's real shot there. But I'll talk more about, the meta and Dallas later when I cover some of their games. But with that, guys, let's move into our main discussion. Obviously, it's a pretty big week. We got the kickoff of Stage 4, so let's go ahead and preview what games we're going to see in Stage 4 Week 1. So, on Wednesday, at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, we're going to kick things off with Los Angeles Gladiators going up against the San Francisco Shock. So, we're kind of opening things up on Blizzard World, where the Gladiators, they're 5-0 lately. Pretty good overall. The Shock's play on Assault has been pretty good. That's probably been like their most consistent match type across the board. But really, like, Control has been where this team has struggled. They've won, I think, 39% of the games on Control, so that's really like the one map archetype that's really been like their Achilles heel. So, like, when I look at this particular match, you have to talk about Surefour and Architect, right? So, looking at the stats from Stage 3 on Widowmaker, because, Widowmaker was a pretty big deal last stage, might still be. Surefour posted a 1.98 final blow to death ratio, and Architect was right behind him, like literally right under him at 1.97. But where these two kind of differed was in the Widow v. Widow match. So Surefour was a better Widow duelist compared to Architect. So, when I look at this, like, okay, I know we're going to be in a new meta. Will we see Brigitte right away? That's like the biggest question mark. Will we see the new Hanzo? That's the other thing. Like, we don't know. But like, when it comes to teams that I want to see run Brigitte, I look at the Shock. I really want to see Brigitte with the Shock because, I know with that extra armor, that is going to give Sleepy even more of a buffer, and that'll make him just even, like a bigger force to be reckoned with at that point. Both of these teams do have fairly good Zenyatas. Shaz has been probably the more consistent of the two overall, but Sleepy lately has really started to come into his own, much like Architect, so the Shock have been looking better. That being said, though, when it comes to the Gladiators, really the thing is, it's like, okay, will the consistency be there for the DPS? Because for as good as they have been, that's really been like the biggest question mark. Sometimes they perform great, sometimes they don't show up. In the playoffs, it was the support line that kind of did them in, but I feel like in this case, I think the Gladiators will be able to win this. I feel like the map types, or the maps that they're playing on, are going to be in their favor. I expect Gladiators to come out on top of this one, 3-1 in this series. But moving on at 6 p.m. Pacific time, we have my soulmates, the Seoul Dynasty, going up against the Los Angeles Valiant, which is a pretty important series already, given that the fact that they are neck and neck in their division, so a lot at stake in this particular one. So, Spider, what are you looking at in terms of this match?
I mean, you set it up. It's like, holy cow, these two teams are like super hard to break down. Every time these two teams meet, one of them sweeps the other one pretty much. I mean, they had one set where they went 3-0 instead of 4-0. But other than that, it's been sweeps in both directions. Now, Valiant does hold the lead 2-1 in their series. But that was before Ryuje Kong. So it was a very different team. It was also kind of in the middle of their slumps. So that also happened. Honestly, the Valiant are going to have to come out, really hot and heavy to win this one. They're going to have to come out swinging just because they have to win Blizzard World to stand a chance, because they haven't played, well, they've played on Horizon, but they haven't won on Horizon yet, which is a big asterisk in this pool. So they need to take the first map to even have a chance, because I feel like Seoul's just going to run over them on Horizon. And the other two maps are pretty much dead even, so it could go either way. So I fully expect actually this one to not be a sweep. I think this one will actually go to a map 5. Speaking of Seoul, if we do get Hanzo, they have a very proficient Hanzo player that can pull him out anytime he wants, and his name is Fleta. So watch out for that, because there's two people in the league that I knew were Hanzo players before the league started. Fleta was one of them, and New York owns the other one. So these Korean teams are going to get very dangerous if the new Hanzo is in. That being said, I feel like Valiant is going to take this one 3-2, just because Seoul has kind of faltered in those tiebreaker maps. But I think this one could go either way. If we are for sure getting the Hanzo meta, I would actually give it to Seoul. But too many things are up in the air right now.
Yeah, like, for instance, will we see Ryuje Khan?
Exactly.
Will they play Brigitte? Like, who's gonna play Brigitte on this lineup? I don't know. There's so... We need the answers. I mean, we can only speculate so much. Possibly. But moving on, guys, we have to talk about the match that everyone is talking about. That is right, I am talking about that Wednesday night match between Dallas Fuel and Shanghai Dragons. That will be at 8 p.m. Pacific time. All right, so as we mentioned, guys, Effect is out for the Fuel, right?
Right.
Now, the analyst desk can pick the Dragons to win without Anger and Effect. You won't see him tilt on stage and then completely, act as a carry for Dallas. And we do have King's Row in the rotation, so this is interesting. So, for those that haven't followed the scene prior to the Overwatch League, the off-tanks on both of these teams were Zarya mains. That is Mickey and Gaguri. Gaguri was well known for her Zarya play, at one point being accused of being too good and was accused of hacking, and then, some other players put their careers on the line, basically, because they were so certain, and then she pretty much disproved that. So, man, like, this is one of those series, like, this is the series in particular that I'm like, okay, I want to know what patch we're on, because that could definitely change the complexion of this match, because, if we're playing with the Hanzo rework, more than likely, Siga will be coming out on the Hanzo. So I think Kings Row right now is like the biggest question mark in regards to this series. We've seen Dia stepping up pretty big as of late for the Dragons. And, I think Shanghai will take this to a map 5. I think they'll take Kings Row. I think they'll take Dorado. But unfortunately, like, Control has been their worst map type, or one of them. I think their win rate is definitely under 10% this season on that map type. So, Dallas, while not a great Control team by any stretch of the imagination, has definitely fared better. So, I think this will go the distance, but I hate to say it, guys, this is not going to be Shanghai's first win. But, like, with how many, like, let me say, the lack of flexibility that we have seen with Dallas, it's so hard to say because, like, with Brigitte, like, we could be seeing that death ball meta, and if we look back at how Envious in the past has done, they did really good in death ball. So who knows? Maybe Dallas will come out and surprise a lot of people. Like, I'm not going to say they're going to be a playoff contender, but I think they will. I think they'll win more games this stage than I did last stage overall. But I think Dallas will take it 3-2.
All right, so I have one thing to interject here, and it's about the flexibility. Regardless of what meta we get, this with Brigitte coming in, Brigitte, uh, coming in, it actually gives them a lot of flexibility because Coco gets to go back on the Reinhardt. You can put Mickey or Taimu on the Roadhog. You can put Siegel or Mickey on the Zarya, depending on if Hanzo's in there. And then at that point, you can run AKM. You can run, OGE still can run as a tank, depending on how they want to play it. They actually have more options in this meta than they did previously. So I am with you. I think they have a chance, but I also don't want to discredit Gaguri and Shanghai's progress. So I am with you. I think Dallas will win this one, but I think it's going to be very close.
Yeah, like, the biggest thing for me right now with Shanghai is, for the majority of the season, we have primarily seen him on dive variations. And that's really, like, the big thing right now. That's why I can't fully back them right now. Like, obviously, like, with their schedule, Fuel, the Mayhem, and the Shock are the likeliest teams to beat. Because they're the other teams that are, near the bottom of the overall stand-in. So, I don't know, like, we're going to see so many different looks, and, it's probably going to take a few weeks before we really start to see the meta sort of stabilize, too. So that'll be definitely something that we need to be keeping an eye on. But moving on to Thursday, guys, kicking things off at 4 p.m. Pacific time, we have the Boston Uprising going up against the Philadelphia Fusion. So, Boston, they have Aim God with him, finally. He is with the team. And they have their 5 supports, so, if we're going to triple support meta, they have that covered. I don't think a lot of people will.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a good game. Boston's coming off of their first loss in 16 games? Pretty far up there, 15 or 16. I don't think that will phase them too much just because of what we've seen. Philly's also coming off a loss to the Valiant, so both are going to be looking to rebound and start stage 4, strong. Historically, it shouldn't be a surprise, but it favors Boston 2-1, just because last time Boston, basically ran over them. Honestly, this could be the match that shows us how much the meta shift is going to hurt certain teams, because Boston, like you said, is 100% dive oriented team. We have not seen really anything outside of dive come out of them that I can think of. We saw triple tank once, I think, in stage 1. But overall, depending on what patch we get, what meta we end up with, it could affect Boston more than we think. But I don't see Boston crumbling under that. Philly has kind of looked shaky the last couple of matches. I mean, honestly, Shanghai took them to a game 5, 2 weeks ago,
right.
4th week in stage 3. So something's going on with Philly, and that could have been just because Carpe was sick, or who knows. I don't expect that to be indicative of their total performance, but I feel like Boston's overall consistency, I've doubted them enough, and I'm not going to doubt them anymore. I am going to see And this is the best time for them to run dive because teams won't be experimenting, week one. They'll be running what they think is, good, especially teams that are still in the playoff hunt. Now, like the Fuel Dragons game, I could see some weird variations coming out of that game because honestly, it doesn't matter for either one of those teams. They're going to play what they think they can win with. Whereas this game with Boston and Philly, Boston's pretty much in the playoffs. Philly's still in the hunt for season playoffs. So they are definitely still possibly to be knocked out. So they will stick with what's tried and true until they feel a little more comfortable. Overall, I'm going to give this one 3-1 to Boston, just because I feel like this is their best time to be able to still run dive. And they may pepper in some of the new meta, just, depending on how the maps go.
Well, kind of going back to Imgut for a second. Like, do you expect it to be a couple of weeks before we see him brought in on some of these maps for Boston?
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially since he just touched down. I mean, Boston's been really good about integrating people when they don't have to, like mistakes. But you have 5 supports. I mean, unless 3 of your supports take like a bad fall down the stairs, just let him integrate slowly. There's no reason to push him out on stage.
Yeah, just make sure they're not taking any shoulder bumps from, D-Pay. Yeah. And they'll be all right, I think.
There you
All
go.
right, well, moving on at 6 p.m. Pacific time on Thursday, we have the New York Excelsior going up against the Florida Mayhem. So, as I mentioned, New York, they've been in the past 3 stage finals. They are poised to finish on the top of the standings. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're already locked up at this point, seeing as they're averaging 9-1 the stage, which is, pretty good. And the map differential between them and the second team is astronomical at this point. Florida, they have been... This is a team that I want to get behind, but, they have just been so wishy-washy. A lot of their promises kind of come off of the back of Saya Player and his impact on a Widowmaker. And I don't think that you can overly rely on that, because, yes, he's been one of the better Widowmaker duelists in the league, but, he still hasn't been on, the same level as some of the other top Widows. So, when we look at the maps, with Florida, in most cases, the maps aren't going to favor them just based off of their overall map record. But, really for me, New York, obviously, we got to talk about CYOP. What is going to happen if we are entering a tracerless meta? How is that going to affect him? Will it affect him? Could he be the one tracer that is just so elusive that Brigitte just can't do anything? Who knows? It could happen. We might see him back on the Roadhog.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
We could see him on Widow.
That's also true. I mean, they do have 3 Widowmaker players. So there is that. But I think either way, when we look at New York, this is a team that has been quick to adapt. It doesn't matter what meta we've been in, they've been able to overcome. And, with Florida, I really struggle to see a scenario where they're going to take a map off of New York. I think New York should take this. They'll take it 4-0. And, that will lead into, what should be another pretty good match on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific time when the Houston Outlaws go up against the London Spitfires. So, kind of going back a bit, I always bring this up when these two teams face. So, London does this thing where they are Jake Rat's kryptonite. Because Drake Rat tries to bring out the Riptire, and it gets no value whatsoever. So, I don't know if Jake's going to try to, change anything up, whether it's his approach or who he's going to try to connect with it, but he definitely has a problem with London. So, with that being said, obviously Houston they have the pieces. This could be a meta that favors them immensely. Boink, based off of what we have heard from the Overwatch League recap interview from last week, seems to be the one that will be running Brigitte on the Outlaws, so we know he's been practicing it. So do you expect to see Brigitte, and just how do you see this one going down? Because these are 2 teams that are very close overall.
It is true, and it's funny that you mentioned that they're Jake's kryptonite because Houston overall seems to be London's
Mm-hmm.
kryptonite. So while they're busy dealing with the Jake Rat, the rest of the
Right.
Outlaws team are running over London. I mean, Houston's won 3 of 4. They're one of the few
Mm-hmm.
people that consistently beat London, so that something's got to be there. It's just a mesh of play styles, and I think you hit it like 100% out of the park. It's this new meta is going to suit them a lot better than it is going to suit London. Now, London has some very talented DPS, but Houston's already been known as the anti-dive team, and when you put in an anti-dive meta, they're just going to flourish. I mean, you've got, like I said, already you've got Linkser who can play Hanzo, Mendo can play Hanzo too. I told you I'd bring him up again. Um,
Free Mendo.
Free Mendo, right? You have Jake who can play Junkrat. He can also play Soldier 76, which we've seen in various comps, depending on if Hanzo is in there or not. So I feel like now that they're not burdened by needing a tracer, it's going to open up the doors to Houston. Um, that being said, I don't want to downplay London. It's not like London isn't a good team and they can't adapt because in the past, not necessarily in Overwatch League, but in general, the Korean teams have been a lot faster to adapt to meta shifts than the Western teams. So that they could be running some crazy strategy we don't know about. They could be already set up with triple support. Who knows? I am going to tentatively give this one to Houston just because I feel like they just have the better overall pieces, regardless of what
Mm-hmm.
they run in this meta. So I'm going to say 3-2 to Houston.
All right, well, moving on to Friday's games, we will start out at 4 p.m. Pacific time with Dallas Fuel going up against the Los Angeles Gladiators. So, obviously we talked about Dallas for quite some time. I really want to see the Hanzo rework in. I want to see Siegel back on Hanzo, just because I know how big of an impact that will have on that team. Because really, they need someone to be at the forefront for that team, to really be, the voice of reason and the person to just revitalize them. Because at times they do kind of seem down in spirits when they're on the stage. So hopefully we'll find out on Watchpoint. The sooner the better. Obviously a lot of people are a bit frustrated, and not knowing kind of affects what teams will be running for the first couple of weeks in Stage 4. But I feel like the Gliders in this series, they will have the distinct advantage in the maps. At least in the series, like outside of Hanamura, where both of the teams are, pretty even overall. So that's really like the one that could kind of go like either way. I feel like right now, like I don't expect to see the Fuel coming out with the dive. I expect them to kind of come out with a different look. Whatever that look is going to be, I don't know. This is one of the teams where I feel like just with how the meta has kind of evolved, they will do better with Brigitte in the lineup. So I think Dallas will more than likely take Hanamura, but I think the Gladiators overall should take this series. And for the Fuel, I think they take one map. I give this one to the Gladiators 3-1. And you're stuck with Boston again. At 6 p.m. Pacific time when they go up against the Houston Outlaws. So, we have the classic dive going up against the anti-dive in anti-dive meta. So, a lot of people downplayed Boston from the get-go. That shattered expectations by all accounts. I mean, there's no way to look beyond that. So, like, I don't think that I can be in a position where I can be like, you know what? Boston is going to fall apart this stage. No, I don't think that's going to be the case, especially with the staff that they have behind that team. But Houston is looking better by the day, and I think this one's going to be very close. Maybe this one even goes to a Mat 5 in this one. But how do you think this one is going to go down, Spider?
So this is the hardest one I had to deal with because obviously I just talked both of these teams up. Typically, when I go over the match for the week, I do like 15 to 20 minutes of research on each match, roughly 10 to 15 minutes, I guess is the best estimate. This map I was stuck on for like an hour because I was just like, but it's Houston. Oh, but it's Boston. So I started digging into the stats. We'll go with the basic historic record. Houston does hold the lead. They're 2-1 against them. but Boston basically ran over them the last time they played. So, that's more indicative, I think, of than their historical record. That being said, this map pool actually heavily favors Houston. Boston has yet to win on Hanamura, so that's a pretty big standout for a team that's currently in second place. And they only have one win on Gibraltar, which is another big asterisk. So I don't think that's really indicative of Boston currently. I feel like that's past Boston. That might have been during their slump. They're a very different team now. I just feel like they're just a much more well-rounded team. I am gonna say 3-2 Boston though.
Okay.
I know I talked up Houston a lot. I just can't doubt them anymore. It's too hard. I want Houston to win, but I feel like this is going to be one of those games where the meta shift doesn't affect it as much.
Right.
Just because, like I said, teams are going to run what they're comfortable with this week, especially the Outlaws. The Outlaws are going to try to run, what they're most comfortable with because they're still vying for that playoff spot, whereas Boston has a little more leeway. Now, had this match happened week 2, week 3, I probably would have been more in line with the Outlaws, but I think it's going to go to map 5, and I think Boston can clinch this one out.
All right, well, moving on to 8 p.m. Pacific time, we have the San Francisco Shock going up against the Seoul Dynasty. So, Dynasty, they're looking to take that top spot in the Pacific Division to get that automatic playoff berth in the season playoffs. And who knows, that might be the only time we see the Dynasty in the playoffs. I mean, that realistically could be a thing that happens where they don't even make the stage playoffs at all. And then they still make the season playoffs. So that would be something. But the Shock season, they're still in it. It will take a lot in order for them to make the season playoffs, but I think they probably have like a less than 5% shot. I mean, so many things have to go right in order for the Shock to make it. It's almost astronomical at this point, like how far-fetched it is going to be. But, they are looking to improve under a new head coach in Krusty, who, they picked up from the Boston Uprising. And, really, like, with Seoul, it's just like, okay, well, what look are we going to get? Will we get Ryu on the tank role? Well, maybe they'll move him to Brigitte. Maybe he'll still be kind of like a frontline presence, just as a support, or hybrid, whatever you want to call Brigitte. I mean, she's literally just a bit of everything. Pretty much a jack of all trades, but master of none. Except if for stop and dive or shutting down people. I mean, it is kind of. We've talked about that to death on Heroes Never Die. You guys know my experience with Brigitte. But like, we've seen Miro kind of, obviously with Ryu Jihan playing the Winston last time. So maybe Miro will be Master of Sun. Yeah, that works too. Riffing off of Master of One. Miro might take, a little bit of a, backseat to Ryu, if that is going to be the case. Just because, he really hasn't altered his playstyle over the past few years. So basically everyone knows the instincts that Miro has on the Winston. Now, if we kind of like go away from the dive, well, maybe that's just not going to matter anymore at this point. Maybe we'll see more Reinhardt and Zarya, more than likely, with the death ball, so that could be a thing. But last time I remember Miro on the Reinhardt, it wasn't spectacular either, so who knows, that might not even be a factor at all. Maybe it will still be Ryu Jihan, regardless of the main tank spot. But, in this series, we have Blizzard World and Oasis, and, they pretty much have near matching records on both of those. But we also play on Horizon Lunar Colony, and as you kind of brought up in the past, whatever team Dynasty we're facing prior hasn't really done much there. But the Dynasty on Horizon, well, just 2CP in general, Korea is amazing at Assault. Like, defensively, we have seen it this season. Like, sure, like, the opposition will attack the first point. They'll get it. Maybe it'll take a few attempts. Maybe they'll get it first try. But we've seen the Dynasty full hold teams with 7 minutes left on the clock on Horizon. And, this very well could be the same case again. So I think when it comes to Assault, I would heavily favor the Dynasty in this series. So I expect that to kind of continue there. But really, when it comes down to it, based off of what we have seen, with Ryu Jaehan on the main tank or not, I feel like the space has been opened up for Fleta. And he's really started to look back to the form that he was in throughout Stage 1. So I'm expecting bigger things for Seoul this stage. I think they will make the stage playoffs, this stage in particular. And, Fleta will have an MVP-like stage overall. So I think the Shock will take Blizzard World in this series, but I give the Dynasty the 3-1 edge overall. So, I'm expecting bigger things for the Dynasty after, some of the recent looks we've gotten from them. So, fingers crossed my gut is right on this one. Because I don't want them to go all season and then not, make it to a stage playoff. Like, I don't want it to be, okay, we're in the season playoffs. That's more like a consolation prize, but it would definitely be something if they just don't make it ever and then they win the season. That would just be completely out there.
I think you're gonna need a new sign for the overlay, and it's how many times does a soulmate ignore Zumba? I mean, like, he's one of the best Zaryas in the world, and you didn't say anything about him. Like, this meta is awesome for him. Like, when going forward, I mean, just think about that. Think back to the first World Cup, and when he came through that window in Eichenwald with that grab, like, him being able to play Zumba is more exciting to me than Gaguri right now, just because of what he could do with her. Put Ryuji Kong or Ryuji Rhine in front of him, whoever you put in front of him. This is going to be a good meta for Seoul. I can't see this not being a good meta. I mean, you can honestly, some maps like King's Row, you could throw Ryu Jaehong back on Ana because Ana's totally viable on those maps.
Right, with the sightline.
Yeah, so I think as a soulmate, you'll be very happy with this stage.
Yeah, and really, I was going to bring it up, but we didn't have Blizzard World in the rotation in this one. So that's why I didn't bring it up. But yeah, definitely Zumba will be in a better position to really create a lot of opportunities for the Dynasty. But moving on to Saturday's games to finish off the week, starting things off at 1 p.m. Pacific time, we have the Philadelphia Fusion going up against the Florida Mayhem. So, Spider, how do you see this one going down?
I mean, it's hard not to pick the Fusion in this one. They're 3-0 over the Mayhem. Plus, the Mayhem haven't won a match on Blizzard World yet. It's the Mayhem have a shot if they hold out, because they could win on both Oasis and Horizon, just because both teams tend to be equally terrible on those maps. So we don't have anything really indicative there. If the new Hanzo's in, I'm curious to see who will play it. Saya player would be my pick for that for Florida, just because he seems the most flexible. But I do know Logix has played it in the past, and I also know Tavik has played it in the past. So you could actually see, maybe Tavik on Hanzo and Saya player on Widow, depending on the meta. But it's going to be hard. I think Philly just has too many weapons in their disposal. And, we don't even know who their main tank's going to be, because for the first time all season, they have the option to run Sato. I don't think they will. Like, something in me just says, stick with Fraggy at this point, because they're so close to that playoff cusp that you don't want to shake too many things up unless stuff starts going wrong. Like, maybe if they lose out this week, maybe next week we'll see Sato come in. But for now, I would stick with that core team, and just rely on Carpe, EQO, stuff like that. So I will say Florida will take a map, just because like I said, they're bad on Oasis and Horizon. So there's a good chance that one of them will slip up and the other one will take it. So I will say Fusion 3-1.
Yeah, and Reinhardt is going to play a major role in this current meta, and kind of what Fraggy is known for. Going full Fraggy and just swinging the hammer. Now, talking about Reinhardt for just a second here, I really am curious to see the distance that the Reinhardts are playing from, because, you know, with Brigitte entering the fold, they're not really able to play as front forward, basically, like how they normally would. So, you know, they got to deal with that separation from her flail, basically. So I'm really curious to see how they're going to be handling her on the front line. But moving on, at 3 p.m. Pacific time, we have the Shanghai Dragons going up against the LA Valiant. So, you know, Dragons at this point, you know, they might have a win under their belt. Maybe not. You know, it's been 30 games, so, you know, we might just keep adding to the lose streak record. But, you know, let's say they get that win. I just want to see the mindset that that team is going to be in, because a win could just completely change the complexion of the Dragons overall. Now, do I think that will ultimately have an effect on the outcome of this match? No. I think the Valiant are going to take this one. But, you know, I am very curious to see how the Dragons are going to do in this stage, obviously with kind of moving away from dive a bit, and that being their main thing that they've been working on. Overall, though, they have been, at least they've been appearing to be more on the same page in regards to the support line. But, like, the biggest question mark for me right now with the Dragons is the peel ability of the tanks. I think that has been, like, probably the only area from the tank line that they've been kind of struggling a little bit with.
Yeah.
And, you know, we don't really see that from the Valiant. You know, they don't really have a problem keeping their supports alive, and I think that's really going to be the difference maker. You know, neither team has really looked that great on Hanamura, so, you know, that could be the map that Shanghai ends up winning, but, you know, we're not going to have Junkertown, which has kind of been, like, Shanghai's map, so, you know, that's another reason, like, at this stage, I'm like, ooh, like, what's going to be the map that, you know, Shanghai looks really good on, and I'm kind of struggling right now, at least to kind of, like, put that on paper, which map exactly that is going to be. But I feel like no matter if they play Bunny or Soon, I think they'll be able to disrupt the backline, and that will be the deciding factor in this one. I think the Valiant should take this one, should be 3-1 in their favor, and then to finish the week, we have a very good match, you know, battle of two of the Korean squads at 5 p.m. Pacific time. I'm looking forward to this one. We got the London Spitfire going up against, you know, the Stage 2 and Stage 3 champs in the New York Excelsior.
Yeah, I mean, it's the rematch of the Stage 1 playoffs. So look how far we've come, guys. We're right back, you know. No, but you know, in Stage 1, Stage 2, you know, this would probably be one of the most exciting matches of the week. These teams are 2-2, but last time they met, New York, you know, mopped the floor with them. London, that was kind of during London's, you know, slight downturn. The good news for London in this particular match is they dodge Oasis. So, you know, yay. The bad news is they play on Kings Row, which New York has yet to lose, which, you know, when you look at New York's map record, is a fair amount of maps they've only held like 0 or 1 loss on. So when I dug into this, you know, they're fairly equal on paper. Obviously, New York has a better record just because they perform a little more consistently. And I feel like if we get the new Hanzo, the meta shift's going to favor them a lot more just because of Libero. You know, I mentioned the 2 Korean Hanzo players that I knew about, and I told you New York had the other one, and of course it's Libero. I mean, it's kind of what made him famous on Meta Athena, is whenever he would pull out that Hanzo, it was like, okay, we lost the point. What are we going to do now? I just feel like New York's dominance overall and their adaptability is going to push them through this. I feel like London is going to have another slow start to the stage. I don't feel like it's going to be as bad as Stage 3, just because I feel like London has the pieces to kind of put into place to handle that meta shift. But I feel like New York's going to do it faster, and they're going to do it better, just like they've done all season. So I will say London will probably take a map off of this one because they do dodge Oasis. But I'm going to say 3-1 New York.
All right, so definitely a lot of big games, but obviously, you know, for me, like, if I'm looking across the board, the Valiant and the Dynasty game, for me, obviously has the most, like, personal involvement, but, like, that's also, like, that could, I mean, that right now could determine who gets a top seed in that division anyway.
Absolutely.
just based off of how the overall records are. So definitely keep an eye on that one. I think that overall for me would be the game of the week. But guys, with that being said, let's go ahead and close things out. So if you want to help out the show, one of the best ways to do that, one of the easiest ways to do that, is to go leave us a review over on iTunes. Any feedback or constructive criticism is always welcomed, and that will offer us insight on how we can make for a better listening experience for you. We do have a game night coming up. That is this Saturday. That is May 19th. So join us at 7 p.m. Pacific Time for another night of friendly community competitive games, and the games will be streamed live over on our Twitch channel, which hopefully you're here right now after Overwatch League recap. And that will be streamed by myself, Totally Drunk. We have our Pick'em League, guys, so, I show this every week. You can find the link to it in our show notes. We are giving out stage prizes for Stage 4, as we do pretty much every other stage, and we have end-of-season prizes, which, if you're starting now, you're not going to get an end-of-season prize, but you can still get a stage prize. So, join up with that. But Spider, why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know where they can get a hold of us over on the social media?
Sure, you can find us a bunch of ways. You can email the show at owlnshow@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at owlnshow. Our website, www.owlnshow.com. We have the new recall going up every Sunday, which is just, all the Overwatch podcasts, put in one place for you. So it's actually really nice. I actually found a couple podcasts I didn't know about.
There's a ton of podcasts that a lot of people probably don't know about.
Right. So we also have our YouTube, which is kind of in hiatus because we're working on some new content for that, retooling it a little bit. But you can search us at Overwatch League Network on YouTube. You can hit subscribe, so when that new content comes out, you can definitely check it out. You can find us on Twitch. I mean, if you're not watching now, why not? But you can find us on twitch.tv/OWLN show. Show your support, pop in. We love chat. We love talking to people. And you know what? We're here like almost every night of the week now.
We're getting there.
Monday nights, we have our core show, which is what you're currently listening to, which is Overwatch League Network. It starts at 7 p.m. PDT. Our new schedule update is Wednesdays at 5 p.m. PDT. We have Heroes Never Die, which is the variety Overwatch show, which you get to hear Totem just complain about Brigitte for, what have you guys been running, like 2 hours now?
The last one was a little bit over 2 hours. No, it's not from the complaining. It's the sheer amount of news and stuff that we cover, since we cover literally everything Overwatch and Overwatch League.
Right. And then if you want a more focused show, we have our back cap, our Tier 2 Contenders Path to Pro show. That's Thursdays at 7 p.m. PDT. And then Friday nights and Saturday nights, we're typically doing host streams. Last week, we just kind of goofed around. I think you did comp one night, and we did arcade the other night. I was busy working on a computer Friday night, so I apologize. I didn't get to watch. But if you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at SpiderGD. If you want to find me on Twitch, right here, twitch.tv/OWLN show. I do have my own Twitch, which I may stream the game night to, since ours will be occupied. But where can they find you, Totem?
Well, you can find me over on Twitter. That is at Little Bluebird at Totally Drunk CTR. I do have a Twitch, but I would be here, at least 4 nights a week. Sometimes 5, depending on whether or not, you're here for Friday. Although that probably won't be a regular day that if you're not here, that I would be able to cover anyway. But guys, we do have another person that, obviously isn't on the podcast right now, as you can see by our lovely graphic on stream right now, because he's not been here for now a week, so 7 days. And that is Slambo, my soulmate. You can find him on Twitter at SlamboVerwatch, or over on Twitch at twitch.tv/Slambo. Or if you've also fallen into the abyss, please just wrap a rope around his waist and pull him back. Or just take him with you. I don't know. We need him back. It's been 1 week too many. Or 1.5 weeks too many, if you want to count last week, since he wasn't here for the whole show. But with that said, guys, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Again, our game night is this Saturday, 7 p.m. Pacific Time. Join up with us over on our Discord server, and we hope to see you guys there. But for now, guys, we will see you back on Wednesday for our Wednesday night debut of Heroes Never Die, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you for listening to the Overwatch League Network. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at OWLN Show. The theme music for OWLN is the main theme and victory theme guitar remix by Michael Mack.